We are live on Zoom. We are live on YouTube. What a crowd coming into class on Zoom tonight. Baruch Hashem. Now, I'm just going to go share it on 2 other Facebook pages and we will be good to go. The internet is misbehaving since yesterday. We pay a lot of money for the internet, and it's a tag of kaparas. You know what that means?
Little chaos?
No, tag of kaparas. It's worthy of kaparas.
Oh, offering. No.
Kappas. Is that from Pesach?
No, Erev Yom Kippur, when you swing the chicken, karpas, not karpas, kaparas.
Chicken thing.
Okay. We are live. Going to give you all 30 minutes to ignore your election problems, to ignore your mortgage payments, forget about it all. I'm just going to share. That's right, come to my aura. Is it live? Is it not live? What's going on, Mr. Zoom? No, I know it's live. I think it says we're live. Okay. Facebook's definitely working. There we go.
Seven.
Yeah. Sunday school.
It says we're live streaming, so I'm going to take it as we are live streaming, and that's it. We are on all our platforms. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol midvarim. We are going to open our Chumash about halfway through the Parsha, and you will find it on actually, it's actually not halfway through the Parsha. It's all the way towards the end of the Parsha, page 113. So we're talking here about, it's Parshas Vayera. It's the 4th portion in the book of Genesis and the book of Bereshis. And it's talking about the founding father of Judaism, Abraham. First his name was Abram, then his name was switched to Abraham. And, you know, it's fascinating. And I need to make this introduction because without it, it doesn't give you the juice, it doesn't give you as much of the excitement. So the first 75 years of Abraham's life, we have nothing written about it. All the information we have about Abraham's first 75 years in this world, we have from the Medrash, from the Gemara, from the oral tradition, how he interacted with his father and his father's idols, which was very creative. Right? He didn't like his father's idols, so he took an axe one day when his father asked him to take care of the idol shop, and he broke all the idols. When his father came home, his father said, "Hey, what do you do?" He said, "Me? No, they got into a fight with each other and they beat each other up." What do you mean? They're statues, they can't move. He says, "Oh, really? Yeah, you think it's noteworthy or it's important to pray to them?" So he was a cute kid. Then he discovered, you know, obviously in the process he discovered God. In this process he discovered he was thrown into the fiery furnace by Nimrod. There's a lot of things in his life that happened in the first 75 years we don't read about. We get to know Abraham when God says, "Pack your bags, leave Ur Kasdim and go to the land that I will show you." Subservience. You don't have an opinion, you follow what I tell you. And you go to the land that I will send you to. And it's always interesting to note which parts of our founding fathers and mothers, our matriarchs and patriarchs, which part of their life experience is mentioned biblically and which isn't. And generally the rule is if it's mentioned biblically, it's sending a message. God is telling us that these parts of the story need to be learned in a much deeper way because they have a more valuable lesson for each of us to experience in our own life. Which is why the verse that we're about to read stands out as one that seems a little off or perhaps uncertain why it would mention it. And that is, we'll go back to verse 31. So it's on page 113. It says, the place was therefore named Beersheba because the two of them took an oath. They formed a covenant to Beersheba. So Abraham and his shepherds had this dispute with Avimelech and his shepherds. We read about this on Rosh Hashanah in our Torah reading because from here it goes to the Akedah. Due to poor wireless, the internet. Okay, somebody's there. Now I know it's working. Good to see you all. I have issues with
113.
Spectrum. No talking. We can't interrupt the middle. So the verse says they made a pact, Abraham and Avimelech. Then it says Avimelech and his army general Pichol. There was Avimelech and Pichol, his general, got up and they returned to the land of Philistines. So we're back to the Philistines. Go have a good day. Then what happens? And this is where we're going to get to in today's class. Abraham planted an orchard, alternatively established an inn in Beersheba, and he encouraged all guests there to proclaim the name of God, the God of the world, after they finished eating. And then it concludes this aliyah. Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines for 26 years. Several days more than 25 years he lived in Hebron. Now, what I want to zoom in on over here is two things. And it's very, very, it can be read very casually, but it's not to be read casually at all. First of all, Abraham planting an orchard or establishing an inn. That's a very important piece of information, clearly, because the Torah mentions it. Except, why is it so important? So he made an inn, so he planted an orchard, yippee-doo. He's the only one. Back then, it wasn't like they had groceries. Everyone had to plant a garden, had to do something to get some food, to get sustenance, to make a living. So Abraham, the founding father of Judaism, we need to know what he did for a living. We need to know that he had a garden. Abraham moved to Bozeman and he planted a garden. Mazel tov. So he went to Beersheba and he had an orchard or he had an inn. That's the first part of the question or the first comment that I'm going to make. The second part is how fascinating it is that in the same verse, not the same Torah portion, the same verse that says he planted an orchard or he opened an inn, it says he called out in the name of God, God of the universe. And why that's important is because you're talking about someone who had an orchard, and in the same verse you're connecting it to the fact that he was calling out and helping the world recognize God. Should that be lumped into the same verse? So why it mentions Abraham's orchard is to teach us how far he went, right? We obviously have our founding fathers and mothers who teach us about the importance of kindness. Abraham was the epitome of chesed, so much so that the Medrash says that when Abraham came to this world, the attribute of kindness on high said, I'm going to be out of business because he's already amplifying and living in a state of kindness that I don't even have to exist anymore. The sphera, the attribute of kindness. That's great that we're learning kindness from Abraham. But how far do you go with kindness? Americans, I love to talk about it. I know everyone gets offended. When I talk about Americans, it's because I'm an American and I live in America. I don't want you to think I think Americans are worse than Canadians. I don't want you to think I'm amplifying other countries. I don't want you to think I'm not part of America first or against America first. All of that stuff is not relevant. Take all your psychosis from the media and take it to someone else. It's not my problem. I'm an American and I can see what's going on in America. And in America, we do kindness and it's very nice. We're a pretty kind society. Jew or non-Jew, it's a pretty kind, philanthropic, compassionate society. But then there's Abrahamic or Jewish compassion and kindness and charity, and that's a whole different animal. And what I mean by that is, what did Abraham do? When you see someone schlepping through and coming through your neighborhood and they're hungry, you give them something to eat. But the Medrash says, no, Abraham wasn't happy just with food. He gave you food. He gave you lodging. He gave you a place to stay. Hospitality. He gave you what to drink. Then the Medrash says he didn't just grow an orchard, he grew an orchard so he can grow delicacies like desserts, types of fruits and stuff, and nuts, so he can serve his guests specialty desserts. In other words, even when he did kindness, he did it with a sense of selflessness, a sense of self-sacrifice. If you're going, go big. Don't do half-baked kindness. We know in Judaism it talks about kindness that more than the actual act of kindness or whatever you're doing, money, clothing, it's how you do it. If you give someone tzedakah without the proper countenance, without the proper smile, without the proper grace, it's worthless. It can make them feel like a piece of garbage. Here, take your dollar. My bubby on the subway used to take out her wallet and she'd give her the guy. It was a whole process with this big excitement and smile and have yourself a good day, sir. It does wonders. But also in what you're giving. It's not enough just to give them a meal. You're not going to buy them dessert? What do you mean? It's a pauper. I just bought him a meal at McDonald's. First of all, it's not so simple. You can't just buy them a meal at McDonald's because you're not allowed to just give them milk and meat. It's complicated, halachically. Let's say you gave them $10 to go buy hummus and pretzels and a pita in Walmart. It's not enough. Say, hey, what are you going to have for dessert? I got to take care of your dessert menu. So number one, the Torah is teaching us that when it comes to kindness, it's not about getting the minimum amount done. It's about going big. Because I want to tell you something, the value and the self-worth that you give someone by not just giving them the minimum, by going the extra mile for them, does incredible things for their. No one needs dessert. Let's back up here for a minute. I've never met a person that needs dessert. There hasn't been a dessert in my entire life that I needed. No one needs it. I never met a dessert that was a necessary item. Actually, quite the contrary. Most desserts end up messing you up. Whatever diet you're on goes down the tubes. Going to sleep with a dessert stuck right here. You need Tums and Prilosec. And then you wake up in the morning, you feel uncomfortable, you feel bloated. Every Jewish disease under the sun came from dessert. But it feels good. We love dessert. We enjoy dessert. It makes us happy. You ever met an ice cream cone you didn't like? I never did. My kids ask me, do you like chocolate or vanilla more? Generally, I probably would like vanilla more, but I'll do just fine with chocolate. Pistachio could be pistachio. It's all good. When you find someone that's poor and you give them a meal and you say, I can't let you go without giving you dessert. You are not only giving them dessert, you're giving them upliftment, you're giving them self-worth. And Avraham Avinu did that spectacularly. And being that he's the founding father of the Jewish people, the Torah wants us to know that our founding father Abraham, for all his spirituality and all his holiness and all his godliness, and the fact that he introduced monotheism, oneness of God in the world, that's wonderful. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But he started the relationship with God. The way he got God into people's conversation is he gave them good dessert. He didn't stand. You ever see these nutcases? When I was growing up in New York, they used to stand in Midtown Manhattan. They would hold a New Testament in their hand like this. My hand used to hurt just from looking at them. Because how do you stand there for hours? And they see it, they're screaming from Paul and John, and then from Peter. I don't know who they're screaming from over there. He says, if you think you've been standing on the corner for 2 years, you think anyone's listening to you? All you're doing is screaming on the corner. You think someone wants to hear about God from some nudnik standing and screaming on the corner? Some witness standing at the old, you slept from South Africa to Old Faithful, some guy is giving you a brochure at Old Faithful. You think that's going to do it? You want to get to someone's soul. You want to encourage them to have a relationship with God. Abraham knew the secret. It's the Chabad secret, but he was the first Lubavitcher. You get to them through Revelach. You get them through a good meal. And there's nothing. And here's the second important, valuable lesson on the most basic level. There's a thought system in Western society, in Western civilization. You can't mix the two.
What do?
If you're going to give them a meal, you're going to take care of their person's hungry. Can't take advantage of them if they're hungry and start talking to them about God. In the same verse, Abraham gives them a delicious meal, and he says, by the way, there's a God in this world. There's one God. And what that tells us is that just like we're obligated to take care of people's physical hunger, we're obligated to take care of people's spiritual or emotional hunger. So I'm not saying one can't exist without the other. It absolutely can. And if someone's hungry and they don't want to hear you talk about God, you should still, of course, give them a delicious meal. And if someone's not hungry, you should still feed their soul by teaching them about God. But when an opportunity arises for both, you're breaking bread. You say, well, can I bring up God? It's uncomfortable, right? You think it's more uncomfortable for you than it was for Abraham? He was in a world where the word God was despised. There was no such thing. It was a pagan world. And yet he never sat back and said, well, maybe not today. Every time he helped people, he used it as an opportunity to also help them spiritually. The prophets tell us that when Mashiach comes, there'll be a time we'll be hungry. But they won't be hungry for bread. They won't be thirsty for water. Kim l'shmoya as divrei Hashem, they'll be hungry and thirsty to hear the word of God. Just like there's physical hunger and we have physical food banks and nobody has a problem with a food bank. What about spiritual food banks, which are Chabad houses? Chabad houses actually act as both. We give plenty of food. We're not a food bank, but we give plenty of food, but we also nourish the soul. And it's not something to shy away from, it's something to embrace. Because you have to remember, and it's so important because I was going through a bunch of volumes of the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, and his various discussions about Abraham. And it's very, very interesting that if you look at the trajectory of of humanity, so you had good people before Abraham, right? Abraham came around 1948, right? The year 1948 from creation. Not 1948. 1948. We're now in the year 5786. He came around the year 1948. So you had Adam, who, in addition to being created by the hands of God, literally, he was the first human being. He was also a great pious person. He got to name the animals. I mean, he had quite the history. You had Chanoich, Enoch, Chanoich. He was a righteous person. He was a wise person. 260 years, he was the guiding light of humanity, was Chanoich. You had Mesushelach, Methuselah, who was a great righteous person. The longest living person. He lived till 969. Because of him, we delayed the great flood by 7 days. So obviously he was a very righteous person. We had Noah, who the Torah says he was a righteous person. We had Shem, Noah's son, who was Malki Tzedek, the great pious priest of the Jewish people. You had Aver, which is a great grandson of Shem, who had a yeshiva where Abraham learned for 39 years, studied with Aver. And yet, the Medrash says something incredible. The Medrash says that until Abraham came along, the world operated in darkness. Until Abraham came and started illuminating. How's that possible? How's it possible that all these great people that came before were not worth it? Was still considered darkness? And the answer is yes. Obviously, everything's relative. But they did not do outreach. They saw a world full with pagans, and they acted spiritually, they acted holy. They tried to shine their light from where they were standing, but they didn't go out to the masses and bring two things to the masses. Number one, bring incredible midos tovas, incredible, sensitive, compassionate, good attributes, kindness on steroids. Don't just give them a meal. Don't just give them hospitality. Give them dessert. But also, they weren't comfortable enough to talk about God in public. And I think on some level, we're seeing a decay, societal decay on both of these fronts today, which is why we need to remind ourselves of the Abrahamic worldview and action. Number one, Americans have come too much to rely on the kindness that the government will give their society instead of the kindness that we need to give our fellow citizens. And at this point, I don't blame anyone particularly. It's a reality. When you do something for long enough, society gets used to it and people forget that it's not how it's meant to be. The government should not have one person that should need SNAP. What are you, crazy, Chaim? Without SNAP, I know. No, I didn't say they should stop giving SNAP. I said that they shouldn't have to give SNAP because every member of our society, every community would take care of their people in their community that are poor, and there wouldn't be a need for the government to step in at all. The reason the government stepped in is because we failed as a society to follow the Abrahamic hospitality and kindness. And for that matter, we also failed the Abrahamic work ethic, which maybe that's interconnected, but still. Today I'm focusing on the kindness, the self-sacrifice for kindness and generosity and hospitality and dessert. We have to fight for people to have dessert because that gives them that extra boost of self-esteem and self-worth. And the other thing we're missing in society is way too many people, including way too many Jews, who should know better, are scared or uncomfortable to talk about God in public. We can talk about every issue. Talk about mental health, talk about emotional health, talk about politics, talk about beheadings, talk about the water. What do they have in Bozeman? The war. Everyone's talking about war. Talk about every topic under the sun, but do everything in your power not to talk about God. And when a society becomes godless, I'm not talking about preaching your religion. I'm not interested in hearing anyone preaching to me their religion. Don't tell me who's king. If anything, I'll tell you who's the king. Don't you tell me who's king. Don't tell me what I have to believe. Don't tell me how I'm going to go to heaven. But to talk about God, the creator of heaven and earth, what did Abraham do? Abraham doesn't say, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Keil Olam. It doesn't say he said that he called out that God is the God of the world. He called out that God is world. What does that mean, God is world versus God is the world? Or God, he didn't say God of the world, he said God is world. Keil Olam instead of Keil HaOlam. He was trying to impress on their minds that God is not just the creator of the world and then he checked out. Because there was a movement back then that believed that God would not deal with lowly matters in this world. Why would a God want to deal with such physical stuff, materialistic stuff? The world is a crazy place. God's up there. He doesn't deal with down here. Abraham's message to the world is there's hashgacha pratis. There's divine providence. God is omniscient. God is omnipresent. God is omnipotent. God is in everything we are doing, which is why, where did he bring godliness? He brought it specifically to a physical meal, a delicious meal. Remember in the Parsha, when the angels come as human beings, what does Abraham serve them? You remember? Bread and very good tongue.
Yeah.
Tongue, and the Medrash says he gave them mustard. He had the first kosher deli. Tongue with mustard and bread. Oh, we spoke about it at a different class, how he ended up giving them also milk. How could you do milk and meat? It's a discussion we had many times before. Don't worry. He didn't break any rules, but it's not the discussion for today. But he served them a feast. And what he was telling them in this subtle way is, in this meal of deliciousness, it's in this lowliness that you can find godliness. Don't be foolish to think there's a divide between the upper worlds and lower worlds, and they connect. And you have the ability, make a bracha. What did he say to them? Give thanks to the creator who gave you this meal. And they said, whoa, 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 we're pagans. He said, oh yeah, you're pagans? Let's see how long your paganism will last. I just gave you this delicious meal in the desert. Do you know what a meal like this cost in the desert? It's $10,000. They would say, $10,000? He goes, listen, either you thank God for the meal or pay up. They would freak out and they would pay up. So it sounds foolish. What's the point of getting them to thank God if it doesn't seem like they really mean it? But the truth, huh?
See which way did he go? Maybe give him a chance.
No, but the truth is, it's an interesting thing. It's a coercion. Could they really change their mind so quickly? The Rebbe analyzed this once, and he said as follows. He said, when the Jews were crying in the desert, when the spies came back from Israel, and they said, we're not going to go to Israel because there's giants, and it's scary, and and the fruit is so big, and they cried all night, and God said, you're right, you're not going to Israel. And then when he said they're not going to Israel, so they ended up trying to do tshuva and say, no, we should go. What changed? 5 seconds ago you didn't want to go, now you do want to go, and I'm supposed to believe that you mean it? The Rebbe said something very interesting about human nature. When you crush a person, you slowly remove the facade. Everyone's a tough cookie until you bust them up a little bit. Right? The bully in the bully in the yard is also a tough cookie until the kid that's weaker than him, shocks him in the face, and the whole school watched it happen, and he walks away in shame. So you break the facade. You break the cover-up. You break the evil inclination. You break the stubborn agnostic who says, I'm not going to thank God. Oh, really? Here's your bill. Hell no. Looks at the bill. He goes, I ain't paying that bill. Which makes him start thinking, is it really so bad after all to give gratitude to God? Why do I have to be so stubborn? In other words, we're not forcing him. You see, that's the cynical way of seeing it. Oh, I'm saving money. What really happens is it trains the person to look beneath their stubborn, thick, tough cookie mentality and say, hold on. Do I not recognize God? Like, why am I being so foolish, so silly? So when God or Abraham, when someone crushes that facade, breaks away at the superficiality, the truth starts emerging, maybe not perfectly, but the truth starts emerging. And Abraham wanted to do that for people because he cared not only about their body, he cared about their body immensely, which is why he gave dessert, but he cared about their soul. What are you sitting around like a pagan? How could you not look at the stars and the sun and the moon and the constellations? The other day I was coming home and I don't remember where we were coming from, and Zizi said, oh, is that the dipper? She was looking. I said, I don't know, you tell me. Yeah, but the fact that she was looking in the sky and she can have that conversation. I think tonight is supposed to be the aurora. What is it? I got a text today, huh? Something tonight officially is going to be seen in Montana, or there's a good chance we'll be seen in Montana. That's the perspective Abraham wanted. Come, find God, and also enjoy an incredible meal. And it's interesting about Abraham that he gave charity. It says he was charitable with his body, with his cash, and with his soul. How's that? So with cash, we know he gave so much to the guests. With his body, because he could have hired people, but he himself went and did everything that the guests needed to take care of them. He was the host. But with his soul, you have to think about it from Abraham's perspective. Abraham was the ultimate intellect. Right? That's why Kabbalistically, Abraham is Chachma.
Wisdom.
There's wisdom, understanding, knowledge. Chachma is the initial spark of wisdom that comes to a person. Yitzchak, his son, was Bina. Yaakov was Das. Abraham was Chachma. He was an intellect. He discovered God. In a world of pagans, his brain led him to God. He was obviously a thinker. And what did he have to spend his day doing? Talking to a bunch of Arab pagans, trying to convince them that they should believe in God. Stop worshiping the dust on your feet. Recognize as a creator. That's a lowly job for an intellect to be doing. You ever speak to a Feinschmecker, aristocrat, sophisticated academic? God forbid they should talk to a lowly person because they think they're so smart. And they're not even that smart. Abraham was genuinely smart. Instead of doing what pleasured him, intellectual stimulation, he was doing charity with his soul by giving up on what his pursuits were, godly, holy, intellectually stimulating godly pursuits, to go talk to Arab pagans and teach them about God. And it wasn't considered for him, oh my gosh, how could I? No, he felt good about doing it because that was his goal in life. Give people love, give people kindness, give people compassion, and everyone deserves that. Give them self-esteem, give them self-worth. Stop trashing people, stop judging people. It's very easy to label people. Right now, there isn't a Jew I know who isn't fuming about what happened in New York last night. As a former New Yorker, a recovering New Yorker, I too am shocked at what happened to my beloved city. Although, over the last 18 years, as the trajectory has moved on, has continued with New York, I'm not that surprised. But then you have people who walk around and say that if 50% of the voters voted for Mamdani, that means 50% of the voters in New York are anti-Semitic. And that's ludicrous. Jews, we frame everything from that perspective. I'm sorry to break it to my dear fellow congregants. Not everyone in the world frames every decision they make about Jews. So a lot of people voted Mamdani because they're fools. They're not anti-Semitic, they're just fools. And they believe politicians when they tell them they're going to fix problems that are not fixable. Whatever, cheaper housing, free buses, free gatkes, free potato conditions, whatever they're offering in New York, you can get people to vote for anything. So I'm not saying we shouldn't be disappointed, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned. I think we absolutely should be. But it's very easy to label that's that, and that's that, and we'll write those off and those off. That's not the Abrahamic approach. The Abrahamic approach is let's have lunch. Lunch with who? With whoever was willing to have lunch with me. Why? Because maybe I'll give them a kernel of truth. Maybe they'll hear about God. Maybe when Jews meet politicians, instead of just talking about Israel, they should talk about God. Talk about the values. Talk about the 7 Noahide laws. Talk about the things that everyone needs to hear, whether or not they agree with Israeli politics or not. We're not just, obviously, we want them to support Israel. And needless to say, I do that myself with politicians all the time. But it's not the beginning and end of everything. The beginning and everything is get them on board with God. Israel will come on board automatically. When you're on board with God, there's no issues with Israel. The problem is we're talking about Israel without God. We got to talk to these people about the values of godliness. You find a Hindu, you find a Muslim, you find a Buddhist, you find a Christian. If they believe in God, good. Now we have somewhere to start. Let's have lunch. Let's sit face to face. So, Rabbi, if Tucker Carlson came into the shul of Bozeman, because he does go fishing in the Yellowstone, if he said he wanted to sit with the rabbi, would I be willing to sit with him? What's the question? I just wouldn't let any cameras in. Because I don't let the PR whores get PR off of a chassid. But to have a conversation with a man face to face, what's the question? Maybe I'll knock a kernel of sense into the superficial creature. Don't ever fall down that path. Again, I'm not talking about sitting and having lunch with someone who's standing with a knife trying to kill you, to murder you. That's called having lunch with a terrorist. And there is a difference in having lunch with a terrorist and having lunch with a terrorist sympathizer. Because a terrorist sympathizer could be cured. A terrorist maybe could be cured, but you can't risk it. Because the knife is pointed to you, the gun is pointed to you. We need to learn to be the Avram Avinu. May our tent be open from all 4 directions. Anyone that wants to come break bread, come and break bread. You want to have a meal, come and have a meal. But don't come into my tent to have a meal and think that I'm not going to talk to you about the God of heaven and earth. I absolutely will. Because my charity doesn't stop with the sandwich. My charity doesn't stop with the dessert. My charity doesn't stop with a hospitality place to sleep. it continues into spiritual hospitality. And God, I believe, based on what I'm reading, I haven't seen these exact words anywhere, but I believe that the fact that it's in the same exact pasuk, in the same exact verse, Vayita Eshel beVe'er that he planted an orchard or an inn in Beersheba, Vayikra Sham b'Shem Hashem, and there he called in the name of God of the universe. I believe it's in the same verse because it's teaching us that these two values are not opposed to each other, quite the contrary. They complement each other and they create the perfect fusion of heaven and earth, materialism or godliness, physicality and spirituality, and the ultimate Abrahamic approach to humanity. Kindness, compassion. Abraham, for heaven's sake, in this week's parsha, is begging God to have pity on Sodom and Gomorrah. The original Sodomites, Abraham is begging God to forgive them. And we think we can't. We have to be the cynical, judgmental, negative. He was asking God to forgive Sodom and Gomorrah. We could follow suit with compassion and kindness and love and hospitality. And as a Jew, as an Abrahamic descendant, Abraham descendant, never shy away from having a conversation about God. My standard answer when people at Albertsons and Smiths and Town and Country, wherever I'm in stores all day, Rabbi, how you doing today? Thank God, never better. I can't even tell you how many people a day smile. By the way, I could be having a really, really hard day. It could actually be what you would call a crappy day. And I still say the same thing, thank God, never better. What do they say? Practice till you mean it. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Because the truth is, it is never better. The fact that sometimes I don't realize that, that's my problem, not God's. So thank God, never better. Share godliness. Stop running away from God. Ivri Anoichi, I am a Hebrew. Veselakei Shemayim and Yari, and the God of heaven I fear. You want to threaten me, you want to laugh at me, you want to scoff at me, you want to talk about me, that's fine. But I will never shy away from telling you that Ivri Anoichi, I am a Hebrew, Veselakei Shemayim and Yari, and the God of heaven I fear, and that's the only one I fear. I mean that and Chavi. I had to throw that in. Good enough. They're saying in one of the villages, I don't want to say which village, in one of the Jewish villages in Israel, they would say that the whole village operates by the decision of a mouse. Mouse? Says, yeah, because the rabbi is scared of his wife is scared of a cat, and the cat is scared of the mouse is scared of the cat. So, and the mouse is scared of so the whole village just operates from the cat, right? The reality is a Jew should fear nothing but Hashem. So this one won, that one won. Right? Everyone's talking about Mandani, but no one's talking about the other anti-Semite Somalian in Minneapolis that was trying to be mayor. He lost.
We did?
Yeah. Right? Everyone's talking about Minneapolis voted for their Jewish mayor to the Democrat mayor to stay in office, and they didn't vote in Osama bin what's her name, Ilhan Omar, Osama bin Laden's sister-in-law, Ilhan Omar's friend, to be the mayor of Minneapolis. They're all. So why are we celebrating that? Because the news media wants you to always focus on the thing that's going to enrage you. And rage is easy. Let's get rage about something. It's all the rage. Instead of pausing and saying, the only one that runs this world is God. Jews in New York went out to vote. They voted for Cuomo overwhelmingly. It wasn't meant to be. I don't know why. But to freak out and say the world is coming to an end, like that book we used to read as kids, Heaven is Falling, Chicken Little, whatever that book was. It's not falling. And the only time heaven's going to fall, the sky is going to fall, is when God decides for it to fall, and it's not going to matter who's mayor and who's governor and who's president. So take a chill pill, and the only thing you need to think about this week is, am I going to live like Abraham? Compassionate, kind, hospitable, food and dessert and drinks, and sharing God with the world without any fear of repercussion, without any feelings of uncomfortability. Just go out there and be you. And what it means to be you, to be a Jew, is that there can't be a conversation without God because we are godly beings, descendants of Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebecca, Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. Have a wonderful evening, ladies and gentlemen. Be inspired, be uplifted. Sei gesund, and we'll see you back here sooner than later. And thank you, Yaakov. We'll see you soon.
Big crowd yesterday.
Big crowd here tonight too. It's pretty wild. JLI, we have oh good. I just wanted to make sure that JLI, we have 30 students. Let me actually stop the recording.